Hey there, and welcome to this deep dive, all about, setting yourself up for financial success when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
We're looking at this podcast episode called Money Matters. That's just like full of advice specifically targeted towards young adults. And we're going to be, kind of like pulling out the most important tips and insights.
Right.
The stuff you can actually like use right now to, boost your earning potential and set yourself up for a bright financial future.
Absolutely.
So
it's so interesting how this episode really highlights like the importance of your 20s.
Yeah.
Like as a foundation, it's not just about like the money you're earning right now.
All right.
It's about those habits that you build that could like pay off big time down the road.
It makes sense, right?
Right.
Because Money Matters points out that, when you're in your 20s, you're often less tied down with like, big obligations like a family or a mortgage.
Exactly. That's what makes it the perfect time to, take some risks and experiment a bit and really figure out what works for you. The episode even uses this phrase like financial independence as like a motivator.
Ooh.
And I think that really speaks to people in their 20s who doesn't want to feel in control of their finances.
Okay, so one of the things Money Matters really emphasizes is the power of side hustles. Like they talk about how it's important to diversify your income early on.
Yeah.
It's not just about having a main job anymore. It's about like creating multiple streams of income.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when they hear side hustle, they immediately think, oh, I don't have time for that.
Right.
But you don't need to like quit your day job to explore this.
Right.
Think about like your hobbies, the things you're already good at.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, like, could I turn this into something that like makes money?
Money Matters actually shares this great story about someone who turned their love of baking into a successful online business.
Wow.
They started small, like selling cookies and cakes to friends and family, and eventually grew it into a full-time gig.
That's awesome.
It just shows you that like even something you do for fun can become a real source of income.
Totally. It's all about tapping into that entrepreneurial spirit. And remember, a side hustle isn't just about extra cash.
Yeah.
It's also about you're developing new skills.
Yeah.
You're building your network and you're getting comfortable with that whole like gig economy, which is becoming more and more relevant these days.
Another big takeaway from Money Matters is the importance of networking.
Yes.
They really emphasize how crucial it is to like build relationships with people in your field, even if you're just starting out.
It's true. I think a lot of young people feel intimidated by networking.
Oh, yeah.
Like they don't have enough experience to offer.
Yeah.
But the episode has some really practical advice, like attend industry events, actively use platforms like LinkedIn, even just reaching out to someone you admire for like a virtual coffee chat can make a difference.
Yeah, they even suggested making it a goal to connect with one new person in your field each week. That makes it seem a lot less overwhelming, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about taking those small, consistent steps.
Yeah.
Now, I know you might be thinking, but what if I don't have a ton of experience to like brag about?
Right.
But that's something that Money Matters addresses too.
Right. They made this great point that everyone starts somewhere.
Yes.
You might not have like years of experience under your belt.
Right.
But you still bring something unique to the table.
Absolutely.
It's about highlighting your skills,
Yeah.
your enthusiasm,
Yeah.
and your willingness to learn.
And remember, every experience you gain, even if it's an internship or a volunteer position that's valuable, it's all part of building your resume and developing those like essential skills.
Speaking of skills, Money Matters was also a big advocate for continuous learning.
Yes.
They talked about how important it is to stay ahead of the curve and keep adding to your skill set, especially with all the amazing online resources available today.
Oh my gosh, there are so many like free or affordable online courses and webinars out there.
Yeah.
You can literally learn almost anything from the comfort of your own home.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Think about the skills that are in demand in your field and find ways to learn and practice them. It's an investment in your future.
They even suggested picking one specific skill you want to work on each week.
Nice.
Whether it's coding or graphic design or learning a new language.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine how much you could learn in a year if you dedicated even 30 minutes a day to skill building.
It's about embracing that lifelong learning mindset.
Yeah.
Because the job market is constantly evolving.
Right.
What's in demand today might be obsolete tomorrow.
Exactly.
So it's crucial to stay adaptable and open to learning new things.
Okay, so we've talked about earning money and building skills.
Yes.
But what about managing that money once you have it?
Right.
This is another area where Money Matters had some really valuable advice.
Yeah, they really emphasize the importance of budgeting, knowing where your money is going and making conscious choices about your spending. It might sound basic, but it's honestly like the foundation of good financial management.
They also talk about building an emergency fund.
Yes.
This is something I think like everyone, especially in their 20s, should prioritize.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious, did Money Matters mention how much someone should aim to save for this? Like, is there a rule of thumb?
They suggest aiming for 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses.
Okay.
It might seem like a daunting amount,
Yeah.
but even setting aside like a small amount each week can add up over time. Think of it as like an insurance policy for your finances. It's there to protect you if you lose your job or have an unexpected medical bill.
And of course, they couldn't leave out the importance of investing.
Of course not.
They were really big on starting early, even if you can only contribute small amounts right now.
Right.
They called it like planting the seeds for your financial future.
Right, and this is where the magic of compound interest comes in. They explain it really well, actually. Imagine you invest just $50 a week.
Okay.
And over 10 years at a 7% return, that could grow to over $35,000.
Oh.
It's about playing the long game and letting your money work for you.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole compound interest thing a bit more.
Okay.
What exactly is it, and why is it so important, especially for young people?
So compound interest is essentially earning interest on your interest.
Okay.
So the money you invest earns interest,
Right.
and then that interest earns even more interest.
Oh.
It's like a snowball effect. It starts small, but it grows exponentially over time.
Right.
And the earlier you start, the more time your money has to compound and grow.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They also gave some advice that went a bit deeper, like making sure you understand high interest debt.
Yes.
Things like credit card balances or payday loans, and why it's so important to pay that off as quickly as possible.
High interest debt can be a real drag on your finances.
Yeah.
It's like running on a treadmill. You're working hard, but not really getting anywhere. Right.
Imagine how much faster you could reach your financial goals if you weren't paying tons of interest every month.
They also had this interesting perspective on like how to approach your finances overall.
Yeah.
Instead of just focusing on like cutting expenses, they encourage listeners to also explore ways to increase their income.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not just about depriving yourself.
Yeah,
It's about finding ways to earn more so you have more to work with.
exactly.
This could be through negotiating a raise, taking on freelance work, or even like exploring different career paths.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from side hustles to networking to investing.
That's a lot.
But Money Matters ends with this powerful message about mindset.
Yes, they really emphasize the importance of believing in yourself and your ability to achieve your financial goals. It's about adopting a growth mindset,
Yeah.
not being afraid of failures, but seeing them as learning opportunities.
Okay, so let's pause here for a moment and reflect on everything we've learned from Money Matters so far.
What are some of the key takeaways that really resonated with you?
It's interesting how Money Matters highlighted that a lot of these financial habits are like interconnected.
Yeah.
For example, developing a side hustle could actually help you become a better investor.
That's a really interesting connection. How so?
Well, think about it. A side hustle can teach you about managing income and expenses, taking calculated risks, and even like understanding market demand. These are all valuable skills that can translate to making smarter investment decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like a side hustle can be a mini business school,
Right.
giving you real-world experience in finance and entrepreneurship.
Exactly. And speaking of real-world experience, remember how Money Matters talked about not letting a lack of experience hold you back?
Wow.
Guess what? Building a side hustle is a fantastic way to gain experience in your field.
Right.
It's like a self-made internship.
I love that idea. And even if you don't turn your side hustle into a full-time career, the skills and connections you make along the way can be incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And speaking of connections, let's circle back to networking.
Okay.
Money Matters had some great advice on how to make it less intimidating.
Yeah.
Remember how they suggested using LinkedIn to connect with people in your field?
Yes. And they even suggested reaching out to someone you admire for a virtual coffee chat.
Yeah.
But what if you're not sure what to say? How do you make that initial connection without feeling awkward?
That's a great question. Here's a tip. Find common ground.
Okay.
Look at their profile, see what they're interested in, and mention something specific that resonated with you.
Right.
Maybe they wrote an article that you found insightful. or they work for a company you admire, people are usually happy to talk about their work and their passions.
That's a really helpful tip. And remember, Money Matters stress that networking isn't just about like asking for favors or job leads.
Right.
It's about building genuine relationships.
Exactly. It's about learning from others, sharing ideas, and expanding your network organically. You never know where those connections might lead.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about investing.
Okay.
Because Money Matters really emphasize the power of starting early.
Yes.
They made a great point about compound interest and how even small investments can grow significantly over time.
Do you remember that example they gave about investing $50 a week?
Yes.
Over 10 years, that could grow to over $35,000. And that's assuming a relatively conservative 7% return.
That's incredible. But for someone who's new to investing, where do you even start?
Right.
It can feel really overwhelming with all the different options out there.
You're right, it can be daunting. Money Matters briefly touched on different investment vehicles like index funds and ETFs.
Okay.
These are great options for beginners because they offer diversification and tend to have lower fees. It's like buying a small piece of many different companies all at once.
So instead of trying to pick individual stocks, which can be risky, you're spreading your investment across a whole basket of companies.
Exactly. And the key is to start small and be consistent.
Yeah.
Even if you can only invest a little bit each month, that's better than nothing.
Right.
Remember, it's all about building that snowball and letting compound interest work its magic.
Now, Money Matters also gave some really practical advice about managing money wisely. They talked about budgeting and building an emergency fund, which we touched on earlier.
Right.
But what about debt? They seem to have some strong opinions on that.
Yes. They emphasize the importance of paying off high-interest debt as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Things like credit card balances can really hold you back financially.
But what if you have multiple debts? How do you prioritize which ones to tackle first?
Money Matters had a simple strategy. Focus on the debt with the highest interest rate.
Okay.
That way you're minimizing the amount of interest you're paying overall. It's like plugging the biggest leak in your financial boat first.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And once you've tackled that high-interest debt, you can start focusing on other financial goals like investing or saving for a down payment on a house.
Exactly. It's all about taking those steps to build a solid financial foundation.
Yeah.
And remember, Money Matters highlighted that it's not just about cutting expenses.
Right.
It's also about exploring ways to increase your income.
Right. They talked about negotiating a raise, taking on freelance work, or even finding a higher paying job.
It's about being proactive and taking control of your financial future. Don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth and explore different avenues for earning.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of practical tips and strategies from Money Matters.
We have.
But they also had some really insightful things to say about mindset.
Yes, they really emphasize the importance of believing in yourself and your ability to achieve your financial goals. They called it developing a wealth mindset.
But what if you've made financial mistakes in the past?
Right.
How do you overcome those feelings of self-doubt and start fresh?
That's something Money Matters addressed directly. They reminded us that everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's all about learning from them and moving forward.
Right.
They even suggested reframing those mistakes as learning experiences.
It's about shifting your perspective and focusing on what you can do differently in the future.
Exactly. And they also emphasize the importance of surrounding yourself with positive influences, people who support your goals and inspire you to grow.
So it's not just about the practical steps you take, but also about cultivating the right mindset and building a supportive network.
Absolutely. And that's a powerful message that goes beyond just finances.
Right.
It's about believing in yourself and your ability to achieve anything you set your mind to.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. But what does this all mean for you?
Right.
What are some actionable steps you can take based on the wisdom we've gleaned from Money Matters?
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to reflect on that. You know, as we're reflecting on all this great advice from Money Matters, I'm thinking about that person who's, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed right now. They're in their 20s.
Right.
They're hearing all this talk about side hustles and investing and networking.
Yeah.
And it might feel like a lot to juggle.
It's understandable to feel that way.
Right.
But, Money Matters reminds us that you don't have to do everything at once.
Yeah.
It's about taking those small, consistent steps
Yeah.
and focusing on progress, not perfection.
I love that. Progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is the most important first step
Okay.
someone could take?
Okay.
based on everything we've discussed.
If I had to pick just one thing, I'd say it's creating a budget.
Okay.
That's the foundation of everything else. Once you know where your money is going, you can start making intentional choices about saving, investing, and even exploring side hustles.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, you can't manage what you don't measure. So get clear on your income and expenses.
Yeah.
Then you can start making a plan.
And remember, budgeting doesn't have to be restrictive or complicated.
Yeah.
There are tons of apps and online tools that can help you track your spending and set financial goals.
And speaking of goals, Money Matters also talked about the importance of having a clear vision for your financial future.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years?
Right.
What kind of lifestyle do you want to create?
Having that vision can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah.
It gives you something to work towards and helps you make decisions that align with your goals.
It's like having a destination in mind when you set out on a journey.
Yes.
You might not know the exact route yet,
Right.
but you have a direction to head in.
Exactly. And as you start taking those steps towards your goals,
Yeah.
remember to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's about acknowledging your progress and staying motivated.
They also make a really interesting point about viewing failures as learning opportunities.
Yes.
Which, that could be tough,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to finances. It's easy to get discouraged if you make a mistake or experience a setback.
But think of it this way. Every successful entrepreneur, investor, business person has likely experienced their share of failures along the way. It's part of the process.
Right.
What matters is how you learn from those experiences and use them to grow.
It's about developing that resilience and that growth mindset.
Exactly.
Money Matters really emphasized that, didn't they?
They did. And they also encourage listeners to find mentors or connect with people who are already doing what they aspire to do.
That's a great reminder. Sometimes just talking to someone who's been there and done that can give you the inspiration and guidance you need to take those next steps.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
There are so many resources available, from financial advisors to online communities to even just friends and family who might have valuable insights to share.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Money Matters, I'm curious, what's one specific action you're going to take this week based on what we've discussed?
I'm going to revisit my budget and make sure that it's still aligned with my current goals and priorities. Life changes and our financial plans should adapt along with it. What about you?
I'm inspired to finally reach out to that person I've been admiring on LinkedIn.
Oh, nice.
The one who's built a successful career in the field I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Just a quick message introducing myself and expressing my admiration for their work.
Nice.
Who knows where it might lead.
That's fantastic. Remember, even a small gesture can open up unexpected opportunities.
So as we leave you to ponder all this wisdom from Money Matters,
Yes.
I want to leave you with one final thought, inspired by their discussion of compound interest.
Okay.
Imagine a small snowball rolling down a hill.
Okay.
At first it seems insignificant, but as it gathers more snow, it grows larger and larger, gaining momentum,
Yeah.
and eventually becomes like an unstoppable force.
Wow.
Your financial journey in your 20s is like that snowball. Every action you take, every dollar you invest, every skill you learn adds to that momentum.
Right.
Setting you up for a future of financial abundance and freedom.
It's an inspiring image, isn't it?
It is.
So go out there, start building your snowball, and watch in amazement as it transforms your financial future.
Yeah.
And remember, we're here with you every step of the way.
Yes.
Feel free to reach out and share your own experiences, challenges, or triumphs.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy hustling.